Episode 3 picks up a couple of days after Jamie Tart has been integrated back into the team. Ted goes to give Rebecca her morning biscuits, but right outside of Rebecca's office is some 13-year-old girl that Ted doesn't know. When he walks in, he finds out that it's Sassy Spur's daughter. Sassy's speaking at a conference, so Rebecca's going to be watching the 13-year-old outside, who's named Nora, and it turns out Rebecca is Nora's godmother. After this, Ted heads downstairs to address the media, and it turns out that Richmond FC is actually heavily favored this week. But Trent Krim from The Independent always has to ask the hard questions, so he asks about the impact of the locker room by bringing in a guy like Jamie Tart. And Ted tells Trent that he doesn't really think it's going to be an issue. But as Ted is talking about how Jamie's return to the team won't negatively impact the team itself has kind of ostracized him. Jamie's in a corner, doesn't really talk to anybody. And when Keeley comes in with photos from a Dubai Air photo shoot that Sam is featured in, and the team is huddled around him joking about the photos, Jamie tries to be included and joke back, but anything Jamie says just feels mean-spirited. Gets pretty awkward. Before Keeley does leave, she reminds everybody to sign up for a new dating app that she's peddling called Banter. Keeley exits, Ted enters, and they start going over the game plan for that week, but Jamie interrupts Ted and says, actually, I'd like to address the team. And Jamie apologizes for everything that he did, which turns out is a lot because the team starts going around the room saying what a douchebag he was. Jamie vows, though, to be different, to change, and to become a better teammate. They all then head out to the practice pitch where Ted lets Jamie know that he's going to start him on the reserves and make him work his way back into the starting rotation. But just because Ted has forgiven Jamie doesn't mean his teammates have. Because during practice, as Jamie is streaking down the pitch, his teammates are gunning for him. And Jamie's able to dodge the first few, but Sam ends up performing a pretty hard slide tackle, walking over to Jamie and saying, oh yeah, things changed when you were gone. And Sam is kind of flying high. He just set Jamie Tart in his place. He got this Dubai Air gig, and after practice, he excitedly texts his dad about the pictures, but instead of being happy for him, his dad is livid at him. Because, unbeknownst to Sam, Dubai Air's parent company had a massive oil spill in Nigeria, and they're just refusing to clean it up. Instead, paying off the government so they don't have to. So Sam's dad gives him a, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed kind of text. And it's something that Sam truly had no idea about. Now over with the boss of AFC Richmond, Rebecca takes Nora out to make good on the time that was lost since the last time she saw her. Problem is, the last time she saw Nora was about 6. Now she's 13, things have changed, she's no longer into things like tea parties. She's also not into things like dolls. And as the two are standing in front of a doll shop making fun of the dolls' backstories, out walks Roy Kent and Phoebe. So Roy and Rebecca, Phoebe and Nora start walking on the street with Nora and Phoebe leading the way. And after talking about Rebecca's failed dating life, she changed the topic to how she had all these plans for Nora, but turns out they're all just outdated plans. And Roy reminds her that kids don't need a parade every day. What they need is to feel like they're a part of your life. So that night, Rebecca takes his advice and asks Nora if she wants to go into the office the next day. And it turns out that's exactly what Nora would like to do. She wants to see how a football club is run from a female's perspective. The next day, as she's walking in telling Nora that one of the perks of the job is having your own private office, she opens the door to find that Keeley has overtaken the office. Keeley feels bad about it, but apparently that's what Keeley does when she thinks that Rebecca's out of the office for the day. She just kind of sets up shop. After the introductions, Nora notices the Banter ad and asks, "What is this?" And Keeley says, "Oh, it's just a side hustle. Some PR firm hired me to do some freelance work on it." And Nora asks, "All right, well, what's the hook?" It takes both Rebecca and Keeley a little bit off guard, but Keeley goes right into the pitch for Banter. It's a less superficial dating app, so there's no photos. It's completely anonymous. All you do is talk via messages. You have no idea what the person looks like. While Rebecca thinks this is horrifying, Nora thinks that it's awesome, which changes Rebecca's mind pretty quickly. After this little banter pitch, though, Higgins fills Nora in on what he does for the club. But there's a knock at the door, and Sam comes in. And when Sam enters the room, Nora is completely starstruck because Sam is her favorite player. But Sam hasn't come in just to say hi. He's come in to pull out of his Dubai Air contract. He explains his reasoning and apologizes to everybody in the room, knowing how hard that they worked on it. But nobody's mad at him, and Keeley says, "We completely understand. We'll get you out of the contract." When he exits the room, though, Higgins reminds Rebecca that Dubai Air is their main sponsor, so this could cause waves. Rebecca tells Higgins, though, "I'll handle this. The CEO of Cerithium Oil is an old friend of Rupert's. Don't worry about it. I got this." Now, as Sam was upstairs talking to the bosses, downstairs the coaches were meeting, and Jamie walked in and said, "I think I figured it out. I'm going to buy everyone PS5s. And while Jamie thinks that's a great idea to get back in the good graces of your teammates, the coaches don't. When Jamie leaves the room, Ted turns to Beard and says, I think we have a break glass case of emergency here. I think it's time for the boys to meet that guy. And that guy is Led Tasso. Complete opposite of Ted. He comes out like a hard ass, yelling at the guys, flipping tables. Anything they do is just the wrong thing. He just continues every single drill to lay into everybody. Until Jamie just finally gets sick of it and says, you can stop yelling at everybody. This whole Jekyll and Hyde thing, it's not really working. And Led Tasso yells back at Jamie, oh, okay, you know what? Practice is canceled, which is literally what everybody wanted. So for the first time since Jamie's return, his teammates are actually happy with him. As Led is walking off the pitch, though, Beard grabs him to shake him out of it, and that's when we get the return of Ted. Now, practice was being observed by Dr. Fieldstone, so they start explaining the method of Led Tasso, and she's figured it out already. The thought process behind it is that everybody's mad at Led, so they forget to be mad at Jamie. But you can tell that she thinks this is a terrible idea. After the guys shower up, Jamie, who is still having a hard time getting reacclimated to the club, goes to talk to Keely, but Keely now doesn't have to listen to Jamie blabber on for free. So she brings him up and introduces him to Dr. Fieldstone, the woman who's paid to listen to his problems. And you figure that one of the issues might be Led Tasso. Now, as the team was getting introduced to Led Tasso up in the owner's box, that thing that Rebecca thought would be easy turns out to be pretty hard. She calls up the CEO of Cerithium Oil to get Sam out of his contract, but his response is, release him. And now she's in between a rock and a hard place. Releasing Sam, which is stupid, or risk pissing off the team's biggest sponsor. And considering they're already paying Premier League prices while getting championship money revenue, pissing off your main sponsor is a bold move. But Nora reminds her that sometimes you have to do the right thing even if you lose. So with life lessons from a 13-year-old, Rebecca emails the CEO back telling him that they will not be releasing Sam. The next day, though, is the big match. And as Rebecca is sitting in the owner's box with Nora, she gets an email back from the CEO just saying, fine. So she feels like she won this battle. Keely then notices that Rebecca is on banter, and Rebecca reminds her that she will insult something but try it because she's a good friend. But as Rebecca and Nora and Keely and the rest of the fans are waiting for the team to come out, Sam is in the locker room putting duct tape over the Dubai Air logo on his jersey. And when one of his teammates asks why he's doing it, he tells the entire team of what Dubai Air's parent company has done to his home country. That's when Isaac and one other member of the team ask Sam for the tape, and they also put tape on their jerseys. Sam then tells the team, I don't expect anyone else to do this, but I hope you realize why we, as Nigerians, have to. And that's when Jamie stands up and says, throw me the tape. And Sam goes, what are you doing? And Jamie reminds him, we're a team. We got to wear the same kit. And when the team comes out and takes off their jackets, the entire team has covered up the Dubai Air logo. And that's when Higgins turns to Rebecca and says, this might be an issue. And there is indeed, because the CEO of Cerithium Oil immediately calls Rebecca, but Rebecca sends it straight to voicemail because she's a bad boss bitch. Now, even though they were heavily favored, Richmond ends up losing that game. And after the game, when Ted has to address the media, they ask him, did you know the team was going to do that? And Ted says, no, I didn't. I've never had to have the courage to do something like that because when bad things happen to people like me, i.e. white people, the media has a tendency to write about it without even being asked. So Sam had to go and get your attention. He then throws the mic over to Sam. And Trent Krim from The Independent asks if the protests might have distracted the team and that's why they lost. But Sam tells the whole media group that he's not there to talk about football. He goes on to explain the protest, saying that Cerithium Oil has been paying off the Nigerian government and it's been ruining his home country. When he gets out of the media session, though, you could tell that his emotions are kind of mixed. And Ted has to remind him, hey, man, doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. When he gets back into the locker room, the team is partying it up. Sam can't quite figure out why because they lost, and they lost bad, too. And they tell him, it's because we finally broke the tie streak. Jamie then wants to give a toast to Sam for his bravery. And for the first time, Sam and Jamie dap it up, and Sam tells Jamie, it's good to have you back. And Jamie says, it's good to be back. This little protest has really united the team. But you know what else unites a team? A team photo. Rebecca forces Nora over to ask Sam for a picture, but Sam gets the whole team in it, and they celebrate the broken tie streak by taking a photo. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.